Engineer Sujin Lee was fixing the broken communications antenna when she saw them first. After 3 months of looking up at nothing but enemy ships, her eyes had trouble believing what they were seeing. The stars were disappearing, blocked out by huge shapes that seemed to stretch across the entire sky. Her voice cracked as she spoke into her radio. "Command, you need to see this. You need to see this right now." On the main screen in the command bunker, 47 giant wedge-shaped ships appeared from the darkness of space. Each dreadnought was 3 kilometers of shining metal and deadly weapons, their hulls glowing with the blue-white light of Earth's most advanced technology. Behind them came cruisers, destroyers, and support ships, the largest military force humanity had ever put together. Commander Hyunwoo Park stared at the display with tears running down his face. After months of fighting alone, after weeks of believing they would die forgotten on this distant world, help had arrived in overwhelming force. "My God," whispered Jinho Kim from his communication station. "It's the entire Earth Defense Force. They came. They actually came for us." Admiral Tae Min-yoon stood on the bridge of the flagship UES Indomitable, studying the tactical display with calm satisfaction. Below them, the Veltar fleet hung in orbit around the besieged colony, their ships arranged for planetary bombardment rather than fleet combat. They had been caught completely off guard. "Communications," the Admiral said quietly. "Open a channel to all Veltar forces in this system." Lieutenant Commander Park Ji-eun activated the transmitters. "Channel open, sir." Taemin's voice carried across all radio frequencies with deadly calm. "Attention Veltar forces, this is Admiral Yoon of the Earth Defense Force. You have 30 seconds to stop firing and leave this system, or we will show you why attacking human civilians is the last mistake your species will ever make." On the bridge of the Crimson Fang, Admiral Thexvaran stared at the human fleet with disbelief. His intelligence had promised him that Earth's forces were weeks away. How had they managed to put together such a massive fleet so quickly? And those ships, they were larger than anything in the Veltar Navy. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported nervously, "the human vessels are reading as Indomitable-class dreadnoughts. Our database shows these ships as theoretical designs still under construction." "Then our database is wrong," Thexvaran snarled. "All ships battle formation. Target the lead vessels. We will show these humans the price of interfering with Veltar operations." The Veltar response was exactly what Admiral Taemin had expected, a concentrated barrage from every ship in their fleet. Plasma beams and missile salvos lit up space as the alien forces fired everything they had at the approaching human ships. The dreadnoughts' shields absorbed the enemy fire like raindrops hitting an ocean. The advanced deflector arrays had been designed specifically to counter Veltar weapon technology, using every lesson learned from previous encounters with the Empire. The alien attack, which should have crippled at least several human ships, did nothing more than create pretty light shows against their defenses. "Return fire," Admiral Taemin ordered. The response from the Earth fleet lit up the entire star system. 47 dreadnoughts fired their main guns at the same time, sending streams of supercharged plasma across space at nearly the speed of light. The new weapons were 3 times more powerful than anything previously mounted on human warships. 12 Veltar ships simply vanished in the first salvo. Not destroyed, completely erased so that their atoms scattered across space. The survivors found themselves facing weapons they had no defense against, shields they could not break through, and an enemy that had clearly been preparing for this fight far longer than they had realized. On the surface of New Busan, the colonists came out of their tunnels to witness something no human had ever seen before. A major space battle fought directly overhead for their protection. Young-soo Park stood in the ruins of his family's farm, pointing at the sky with wonder and relief. "They came," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Earth didn't forget us. They actually came." Ms. Heejin, still holding her rifle, watched as Veltar ships exploded like fireworks against the stars. "Look at them run," she said with grim satisfaction. 3 months they've been bombing us. Let's see how they like being on the receiving end." The battle was completely one-sided. The Veltar fleet had been arranged for planetary bombardment, not ship-to-ship combat. Their vessels were caught out of formation, with no room to move around and no way to concentrate their fire effectively. Worse, they were facing technology that was generations ahead of their own. Admiral Thexvaran watched his fleet being systematically destroyed with growing desperation. All ships retreat to hyperspace. We must report this to High Command. But the human fleet had anticipated this move. Earth's cruisers and destroyers had positioned themselves to cut off escape routes, while the Dreadnoughts continued their methodical destruction of Veltar vessels. Within 6 hours, the alien force that had terrorized New Busan for 3 months was reduced to drifting wreckage. Only Admiral Thexvaran's flagship remained, its engines dead and its weapons offline. The Crimson Fang broadcast an automated surrender signal as emergency life support tried to keep the crew alive. General Mi Ray Song stood in the hangar bay of her transport, watching as the first wave of marine dropships prepared to launch. Around her, 50,000 Earth Marines checked their equipment one final time. They had trained for this moment, the chance to show the galaxy what happened when humans were pushed too far. "Listen up," she called out to her troops. "The people down there have been holding the line for 3 months. They've shown the universe what human courage looks like. Now it's our turn to show what human justice looks like." The Marines who landed on New Busan came not as conquerors, but as liberators. They brought medical supplies, food, ammunition, and the promise that no human world would ever stand alone again. General Mireille personally walked through the tunnels where the colonists had made their desperate stand. "You held the line," she told Commander Hyunwoo as they stood in his battered command bunker. "You gave us time to get here. Every one of you is a hero." Sujin Lee, still covered in grease from her repair work, looked up at the Marine general with exhaustion and pride. "We just did what anyone would do. We protected our families." "No," General Mireille replied firmly. "You did something extraordinary. You proved that humans don't break when they're hurt. They get stronger. The entire galaxy is going to learn that lesson." As rescue ships lifted the wounded to safety and construction crews began rebuilding what the Veltar had destroyed, Jin Ho Kim sent one final transmission from his communications station. His voice was steady and proud as he spoke the words that would be remembered across human space. "Earth Command, this is New Busan Colony. The cavalry has arrived.
Thank you for not forgetting us.
Thank you for showing the galaxy that humanity never abandons its own." The news of the rescue spread through every human settlement, every alien civilization, and every corner of the galaxy within days. The message was clear and unmistakable. Attack one human and you face them all. The age of easy victories against isolated human colonies was over forever. The Veltar Empire, faced with the complete destruction of their demonstration fleets and the capture of one of their most senior admirals, asked for peace within a month. Other alien powers that had been considering similar attacks on human settlements quietly abandoned their plans. Admiral Taemin, Yoon stood on the observation deck of the Indomitable as the last of the colonists were evacuated to safety. New Busan would be rebuilt, stronger than before. But more importantly, every species in the galaxy now understood a fundamental truth about humanity. They were not victims to be preyed upon, but defenders who would travel across the stars to protect their own. The siege of New Busan became the turning point in what historians would call the Veltar War. But for the people who lived through it, it was something simpler and more profound, proof that no human would ever stand alone against the darkness of space. Behind every colony, no matter how remote, stood the unshakable promise of Earth's protection and the terrible certainty of humanity's vengeance. In the years that followed, when alien children misbehaved, their parents would tell them stories about what happened to species that attacked human families. And in the depths of space, human colonies continued to grow and thrive, secure in the knowledge that Earth remembered its own. The numbers on Commander Hyunwoo Park's ammunition counter made his heart feel heavy. 3 weeks of constant fighting had used up almost all their bullets and energy cells. Around him in the command bunker, his officers worked with the quiet efficiency of people who knew they were facing their final hours. "Shield generators 1 and 2 are dead," Sujin Lee reported without looking up from her computer. Her voice was rough from being tired and stressed for so long. "The Veltar ground attack will start within the hour. All we have left are the tunnel defenses and whatever ammunition we can find." Outside the strong bunker walls, the surface of New Busan looked like a dead world. The green fields where colonists had grown food for dozens of star systems were now black scars in the dirt. The mining buildings that had provided rare metals were twisted wreckage. 3 months of bombing from space had turned their beautiful world into ash and broken stone. But underneath the surface, humanity survived. Young-Soo Park crouched in Tunnel 7, holding his plasma rifle with hands that had stopped shaking weeks ago. Around him, teachers and farmers and shop owners had become soldiers because they had no choice. Ms. Haijino, who had delivered half the babies in the colony, now worked as both doctor and sniper from her position at the tunnel entrance. "Movement," whispered Sergeant Lee Minho, a former mining boss who had taken charge of tunnel defense. Veltar attack troops moving through the ruins of the processing plant. At least 50 of them. Young-Soo adjusted his rifle's scope and watched the alien soldiers move forward. The Veltar moved carefully now, having learned to respect human shooting skills the hard way. Their gray, slug-like bodies were protected by advanced armor, but the colonists had discovered that careful shots could still find weak spots. "Wait for them to get closer," Minho instructed. "We don't have bullets to waste." Dr. Hyojin-Oh had turned the colony's medical center into an underground field hospital. With supplies running dangerously low, she had to make terrible choices about who could be saved and who could not. Her hands, which had always been used to heal people, now shook with exhaustion as she worked on yet another wounded defender. "Doctor," called out injured miner Kwon Jae-sung from his makeshift bed. "How many more do you think we can handle?" Hee-jin paused in her work. "As many as we have to," she replied simply. "We don't get to choose when to stop being doctors, just like you didn't get to choose when to stop being miners and become soldiers." The truth was that everyone in the colony had changed over the past 3 months. Children who should have been in school now carried messages through the tunnel system, with the stealth of trained spies. Elderly grandparents who should have been tending gardens now made bombs from mining chemicals. The Veltar had wanted to break human spirit, but instead they had made it into something unbreakable. Commander Hyunwoo walked through the tunnels, stopping to talk with each group of defenders. He could see the exhaustion in their eyes, the weight of months of constant stress and fear. But he also saw something that would have surprised the Veltar, determination that had only grown stronger as their situation became more desperate. "Commander," called out teacher Park Sun-mi from her position, guarding a tunnel junction. "My husband's squad reports movement in Sector 4. The aliens are trying to find other ways into the tunnel system." Hyunwoo nodded. "Tell them to fall back to Position 2 if they're overwhelmed. We'll make the Veltar fight for every meter." What the defenders did not know was that their desperate resistance had already accomplished something remarkable. Every day they held out was another day for other human colonies to prepare defenses. Every Veltar soldier they killed was one less available for attacks elsewhere. Their sacrifice was buying time for the rest of humanity. In the deepest part of the tunnel system, Communications Officer Jin-Ho Kim continued his regular transmissions into the void. "Earth Command, this is New Busan Colony. Day 127 of siege. We are running low on ammunition and medical supplies. Veltar ground forces are preparing final attack. We will hold as long as possible." Jin-Ho no longer expected an answer. He sent the messages because it was his duty, because it kept hope alive, because it was one more act of defiance against the aliens who wanted to erase every trace of human presence from this world. What he could not know was that his signals were now being received by receivers much closer than Earth. The rescue fleet had dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the star system and was running silent, using Jin-Ho's transmissions to find the exact location of the colony's command center. On the surface, Admiral Thexvaran supervised the final preparations for what he intended to be the decisive attack. His patience had been exhausted by 3 months of stubborn human resistance. The other Veltar commanders were reporting quick victories at their assigned targets. Only New Busan continued to defy the might of the Empire. "I want every tunnel entrance identified and hit at the same time," he ordered his ground commander. "No more careful advances. We crush them all at once." "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "our forces have taken heavy casualties in this operation. Perhaps we should consider simply destroying the entire underground complex with orbital bombardment." Thexvaran's 4 eyes focused on the subordinate with obvious anger. "No, these humans must be defeated by our ground forces. The galaxy must see that Veltar soldiers can overcome any defense. When other species hear how we crush the human resistance here, they will surrender without fighting." The Admiral did not realize that his insistence on a ground victory was about to cost him everything. While his forces prepared for their attack, sensors across his fleet remained focused on the planet below. None of his ships were watching the outer system, where something unprecedented was about to happen. Back in the tunnels, the colonists prepared for what they all knew would be their final battle. Ammunition was distributed with careful precision. Every round had to count. Medical supplies were moved to the deepest bunkers. Children and elderly colonists were gathered in the most protected areas. Young-Soo Park looked around at the faces of his fellow defenders. 3 months ago, they had been strangers. A farm boy from the northern valleys, a doctor from the main settlement, a mining engineer from the industrial complex. Now they were family, bound together by shared hardship and common purpose. "Whatever happens," he said quietly, "we've shown them what humans are made of. We've proved that you can't break us just by hurting us, Ms. Hai-Jin." Oh checked her rifle one more time. "My grandmother used to tell me stories about the old wars on Earth," she said. "She always said that humans fight hardest when they're protecting something they love." I never really understood what she meant until now. The Veltar attack began at dawn, with coordinated strikes on 7 different tunnel entrances. Plasma fire lit up the underground passages as human defenders fought desperately against overwhelming numbers. In some tunnels, the colonists were forced to fall back. In others, they held their positions with stubborn courage. Commander Hyun-woo coordinated the defense from his command bunker, watching sector after sector report contact with enemy forces. His people were fighting magnificently, but there were simply too many aliens and too few defenders. The mathematics of war were working against them. "Sir," reported Soo-Jin from her engineering station, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures in the outer system. Something big just dropped out of hyperspace." Hyun-woo frowned. More Veltar reinforcements would end any hope of continued resistance. But as he looked at the sensor data, his expression changed from despair to amazement. The energy signatures were wrong for Veltar ships. They were too big, too powerful, and they were broadcasting human identification codes. "Jin-ho," he called out, "are you getting anything on communications?" The young officer's hands flew over his controls, his face lighting up with hope for the first time in months. "Sir, I'm receiving a transmission. It's from Earth Defense Force. They're asking for our current status and defensive positions." For a moment, the command bunker was silent except for the sound of distant weapon fire. Then Hyun-woo smiled for the first time in 3 months. "Signal back that we're still here. We're still fighting, and we're ready to welcome the cavalry." Admiral Thexvaran stood in the control room of his warship, the Crimson Fang. He was huge even for his slug-like race. His gray skin was wet and shiny under the ship's lights. His 4 eyes moved in different directions as he stared at the blue and green planet below. 3 weeks had passed since he got orders to destroy all humans on this world. What should have been easy was becoming embarrassing. The Veltar commander was angry. Very angry. His skin changed to a darker gray when he was upset, and right now it was almost black. Around him, his crew worked quietly, scared of their admiral's bad mood. "Give me a report," Thexvaran demanded. His voice sounded wet and bubbling like water going down a drain. Captain Vexmorai walked up carefully. He knew his admiral was not happy. "The humans are still fighting back, Admiral. Our ground soldiers have been hurt badly, trying to get into their tunnel systems. Their defenses are surprisingly good." Thexvaran's 4 eyes all focused on his officer. This made Vexmorai very nervous. "They are farmers and miners, soft creatures with no military training. How can they possibly fight against the mighty Veltar Empire?" "Perhaps, Admiral. We did not understand how determined they would be. Intelligence reports say they are fighting not just for land, but for their families. This makes them hard to predict." The Admiral waved his massive arm like he was swatting a fly. "Feelings are weakness. We will break them with superior firepower. Increase the bombing from space. Target their farms and mining areas. When they see their precious world burning, they will give up." What Thexvaran did not understand was that he was doing exactly the wrong thing. Every farm destroyed and every mining complex turned to rubble only made the defenders angrier. Humans had a strange trait that many alien races found confusing. They fought harder when they were hurt, not softer. Down on the planet, Dr. Yoonji Choi worked in a hidden laboratory carved from solid rock. She had been studying captured Veltar equipment and listening to their radio messages for weeks. What she discovered made her feel cold with fear. "Commander Park," she called through the secure radio. "I need to talk to you right away. It's very important." Hyun-woo arrived at her lab quickly, crawling through the low tunnel entrance. "What have you found, Doctor?" Yoonji showed him data on a glowing display. "This attack on New Busan is not random. Look at these radio messages I decoded." The display showed a star map with dozens of human colonies marked in red. They are planning attacks on 47 different settlements at the same time. All of them are far away from Earth's main defense fleets. Hyun-woo studied the map with growing horror. Each red dot meant thousands of innocent lives. Families just like his own colonists. Children who had done nothing wrong except be born human in a dangerous galaxy. "It gets worse," Yoonji continued. "These attacks are not meant to capture land or resources. They are demonstrations. The Veltar want to show the galaxy that humans can be killed easily. They think we are weak because we care about individual lives instead of just following orders blindly." The meaning hit Hyun-woo immediately. "They picked the wrong species to test," he said quietly. "Humans don't forget attacks on civilians, and they don't forgive them." Back on Thexferon's ship, the Admiral was reading intelligence reports about human military abilities. His analyst told him that Earth's fleet was busy protecting the core worlds and major trade routes. The Outer Rim colonies were basically defenseless. The humans spread themselves too thin, explained Intelligence Officer Kexthaler. They try to protect everyone instead of focusing on strategic targets. This makes them vulnerable. By the time they can respond to our attacks, the colonies will be destroyed and we will be gone. Thexferon was pleased with this analysis. It confirmed his belief that humans were too emotional to be good warriors. A proper military force would sacrifice the weak to protect the strong. Humans seemed unable to think this logically. What the Veltar intelligence completely missed was the true nature of human military thinking. Earth's forces were not spread thin. They were positioned for quick response, and attacking human civilians was not a sign of strength. It was the fastest way to unite every human in the galaxy with one purpose. The siege continued with brutal efficiency. Veltar ground forces pushed their attacks on the tunnel entrances while their ships bombed the surface from space. They had expected the human resistance to crumble within days. Instead, it seemed to grow stronger. Young-soo Park crouched in his tunnel checkpoint, listening to the sound of alien weapons echoing through the passages. Next to him, Dr. Hyejin-oh checked her medical supplies again and again. They had both seen too much death in the past weeks, but neither was willing to give up. "Do you think anyone else knows what's happening here?" Young-soo asked quietly. Hyejin thought about this. Jin-ho keeps sending distress signals. Someone must be hearing them. The question is whether they can do anything about it. What they did not know was that their signals had indeed been heard. Every desperate message from New Busan was being recorded and studied by Earth's intelligence services. More importantly, similar distress calls were beginning to come in from other colonies as the Veltar launched their coordinated attacks. On Earth, in the huge military complex beneath Neo-Sol, Admiral Taemin Yoon studied reports from across human space. The pattern was becoming clear. This was not random piracy or territory grabbing. This was a planned campaign of extermination. "How many colonies have been attacked so far?" he asked his aide, Captain So-young Han. 17 confirmed, sir. Probably more that we haven't heard from yet. The attacks are all following the same pattern. Overwhelming force used against isolated settlements with no military protection. Taemin was quiet for a long time. He was a veteran of humanity's first wars with aliens, a man who had seen the worst that the galaxy could offer. But this was different. This was deliberate targeting of non-combatants. This was genocide. "Captain," he said finally, "I want you to prepare a full briefing for the Defense Council. Include casualty estimates, tactical analysis, and resource requirements. We're going to need authorization for a very large operation." So Young hesitated. "Sir, what kind of operation are you planning?" The Admiral's face was grim. "The kind that teaches the galaxy why attacking human civilians is the worst mistake any species can make." Back on the planet, the defenders of New Busan continued their desperate fight. They had no idea that their sacrifice was buying time for something unprecedented in human history. They only knew that each day they held out was another day their families stayed alive. Thexferon grew more frustrated with each passing hour. His superiors were asking questions about the delay. Other Veltar commanders were reporting easy victories at their assigned targets. Why was this insignificant farming world proving so difficult to conquer? "Perhaps we should offer to let them leave the planet," suggested Captain Vexamorai. Give them transport off-world in exchange for laying down their weapons. Thexvaren's eyes blazed with anger. Negotiate? With prey animals, never. We will crush them completely no matter how long it takes. The galaxy must see that fighting the Veltar Empire is hopeless. He did not realize that his stubborn insistence was about to trigger a response that would shake the foundations of galactic power. In the depths of space, help was already on its way, help that would arrive with a fury the Veltar had never imagined possible. The alien admiral thought he was teaching the galaxy a lesson about Veltar strength. Instead, he was about to learn a much more painful lesson about what happened when humans were pushed too far. The war room of Earth Defense Command was very quiet. Only the soft humming of glowing computer screens broke the silence. Admiral Taemin Yoon stood perfectly still as the final message from New Busan played through the speakers. The colonists' voices sounded tired but brave, reporting another broken shield machine and asking once more for help that seemed impossible to give. Around the huge circular table, Earth's top military leaders watched the tactical display with growing anger. Red dots marked 17 human colonies under attack. Each dot meant thousands of families fighting for their lives against enemies with better weapons. The pattern was clear and planned. The Veltar were trying to break human spirit by targeting the defenseless. Our nearest fleet ships are 3 weeks away at maximum speed, reported Captain So Young-han. Her voice was professional, but her hands shook slightly as she looked at her datapad. Even if we took every ship from the core world's defense grid, we couldn't reach them in time to make a difference. Admiral Taemin turned slowly to face the group. His old weathered face showed no emotion, but those who knew him could see the dangerous calm in his voice. Captain Han, how many dreadnoughts are currently in Earth's orbital shipyards? So Young looked confused by the question. The shipyards were for building and fixing ships, not fighting wars. 47, sir, but they're all scheduled for final testing and crew training. Most don't even have full crews yet. The earliest they could be ready for combat is 6 months from now. Cancel everything, Taemin said quietly. Every single ship. I want them crewed and ready to fight in 72 hours. The room erupted in surprised voices. General Mirei Song of the Earth Marines leaned forward. Admiral, with respect, those ships haven't finished their tests. We don't know if their systems will work under combat stress, and the crews haven't had time to train together properly. Taemin's eyes never left the display showing New Busan's desperate situation. General, how long have your Marines been training for large-scale combat operations? 2 years, sir. Ever since intelligence suggested we might face a major war eventually. That future is now. The Admiral turned to speak to the entire room. For 6 months, we've been building the largest fleet in human history. These new Indomitable-class Dreadnoughts represent everything we've learned about space warfare. Each ship can match an entire alien battle group. We built them because we knew this day would come. Defense Minister Chang stepped forward. Admiral Yoon, I understand your feelings, but we're talking about risking Earth's entire strategic reserve on an untested fleet to save colonies that may already be lost. The political implications alone. Minister, Taemin interrupted, what do you think will happen to human morale when word spreads that Earth abandoned 17 colonies to their fate? What happens when other species realize we won't protect our own people? The room fell silent as everyone understood what he meant. Human expansion across the galaxy depended on the belief that Earth would never abandon its colonies. Break that trust and the entire human presence in space would begin to crumble. General Mirei stood up. Admiral, if you can get my Marines to those colonies, we'll show the galaxy what happens when you attack human families. Every volunteer in my command has been training for this moment. How many volunteers do you have, General? All of them, sir. 50,000 Marines all ready to go. Taemin nodded with satisfaction. Then we give the Veltar a lesson in human military capability. In Earth's orbital shipyards, the scene was chaos as crews worked day and night to prepare the Dreadnought fleet. The Indomitable-class ships were marvels of human engineering, 3 kilometers long, armed with weapons that had never been tested in real combat, protected by shields that could absorb incredible punishment. Chief Engineer Park Dong-hyun supervised the loading of the flagship UES Indomitable. I've never seen the brass move this fast, he told his team. Whatever's happening out there, it must be serious. Lieutenant Commander Lee Seo-jun, the ship's weapons officer, ran final tests on the main guns. These new plasma cannons are supposed to be 3 times more powerful than anything in the current fleet, she reported. I hope we don't have to find out the hard way if that's true. What the Veltar had not realized was that Earth's military had been preparing for exactly this kind of war. Human engineers had studied every alien weapon system they could find, designing better defenses and superior firepower. The Dreadnoughts were not just bigger ships. They were technological leaps ahead of anything else in the galaxy. Admiral Taymin arrived at the shipyards to personally watch the final preparations. As he walked through the hangar bays filled with Marines loading their equipment, he could feel the determination radiating from every soldier. These were not unwilling conscripts or reluctant warriors. These were volunteers who understood they might not come home. Sir, approached Colonel Kim Woo-jin of the Marines' 1st Assault Division. The men are ready. We've loaded enough equipment to establish defensive positions on all 17 colonies, plus enough firepower to make the aliens regret ever hearing of humanity. The Admiral paused to look at the Marine officer. Colonel, what I'm about to ask of you and your men goes beyond normal military operations. This is about sending a message to the entire galaxy. Are your Marines prepared for that responsibility? Kim Woo-jin's answer came without hesitation. Sir, we've been preparing our whole lives for this moment. Human families are under attack. That's all we need to know. As the fleet prepared for departure, word began to spread through the secret networks that connected human colonies across space. The message was simple but electrifying. Help is coming. Coded transmissions bounced from relay station to relay station, carrying hope to desperate defenders across the rim. On New Busan, Jin-ho Kim continued his regular distress calls, not knowing that this time they were being heard by the largest rescue fleet in human history. Earth Command, this is New Busan Colony. Day 81 of siege. We're still here. We're still fighting. What Jin-ho could not know was that his signals were now being used for a very different purpose. Earth's fleet was using them as navigation beacons, calculating the exact jump coordinates needed to arrive at each besieged colony at exactly the same time. The logistics were staggering. 47 dreadnoughts, each carrying over 1,000 Marines, would have to make the longest hyperspace jump ever attempted by human ships. They would arrive in 17 different star systems at exactly the same moment, catching the Veltar forces completely off guard. Admiral Taymin stood on the bridge of the Indomitable as the final preparations were completed. Around him, his bridge crew made their last-minute checks. These were experienced officers, but none had ever commanded ships this powerful or attempted an operation this ambitious. Navigation reports ready for jump, announced Lieutenant Kim Jin-wook. All ships report ready for synchronized departure. Communications send one message to New Busan and all other colonies under attack. Tell them help is on the way. The message that went out was simple. Hold the line. Earth remembers its own. What the defenders of those distant colonies could not know was that Earth was about to demonstrate why attacking human civilians was the most dangerous mistake any alien species could make. The Dreadnoughts were not just coming to rescue the colonists. They were coming to show the galaxy that humanity's protection extended across every light year of space. As the fleet entered hyperspace, traveling faster than any human force had ever moved, the Veltar continued their attacks, unaware that they had awakened something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The age of easy victories against human colonies was about to end in the most dramatic way possible. In the depths of space, 47 dreadnoughts raced toward 17 different worlds, carrying with them the promise that no human would ever stand alone against the darkness again. The ground shook again as another alien bomb hit the surface above them. Commander Hyun-woo Park looked at his watch and sighed. 3 months. For 3 long months, his people had been trapped underground while enemy ships burned their world from space. Red lights flashed across the command room as dust fell from the ceiling. The air was thick and hot. Everyone was sweating. Soo-Jin Lee sat at her computer station trying to fix their broken shield machines. Her fingers moved quickly across the controls, but her face showed how tired she was. Shield number 4 is broken, she said without looking up. We only have 2 shields left to protect the main town. Hyun-woo nodded. He had been expecting this bad news. The alien ships had been shooting at their shields day and night. Every shield that broke made it easier for the enemies to reach the 12,000 people hiding in the tunnels below. The enemies were called the Veltar. They looked like giant slugs with gray skin and 4 eyes. They were not kind. When they attacked human towns, they killed everyone. Men, women, children, it did not matter to them. They saw humans as bugs that needed to be stepped on. Jin-Ho Kim sat at the radio station. He was young, maybe 25 years old. Every 6 hours he sent the same message into space. Earth Command, this is New Busan Colony. We need help. The aliens are attacking us. Many people are hurt. Please answer us. He had been doing this for months. No one ever answered back. Any word from Earth? Hyunwoo asked, even though he knew the answer. Jin-Ho shook his head. Nothing, sir. I sent our call for help 2 hours ago. Still no answer. He kept trying different radio settings, different ways to send the message. Maybe someone would hear them. The aliens are making it harder for our signals to get through. I don't know if anyone can hear us anymore. The room shook again. More dust fell. Through the thick windows, Hyunwoo could see the night sky full of fire. The alien ships hung above them like angry red stars. Their weapons lit up the darkness as they shot down at the colony. New Busan had been a happy place before the war started. The people here grew food and dug metals from the ground. Most were farmers and miners, not soldiers. They had built nice homes in green valleys. Their children played under blue skies. Now those same skies rained death on them. Dr. Yoonji Choi walked into the command room. She was the colony's scientist who studied aliens. She carried a small computer and looked very serious. I have been listening to their radio talks, she said. This is not just a random attack. They are testing us. Testing us for what? Hyunwoo asked. To see how long we can fight. How much pain it takes to make humans give up. I think New Busan is the first target, but not the last. She showed him data on her computer. I heard parts of their messages. They plan to attack many other human colonies, all far away from Earth's protection. This news made everyone in the room feel sick. They were not just fighting for their own lives. They were fighting to show the galaxy that humans would not break easily. Even a small farming colony could stand up to bullies. Young-Soo Park was barely old enough to vote, but he carried a gun in Tunnel 7. Around him, teachers and doctors and old grandparents held weapons they never wanted to use. They were not soldiers, but they had become fighters because they had no choice. How many aliens do you think are out there? Whispered Dr. Hai Jin-Oh. She was normally the colony's doctor, but now she helped defend the tunnels too. Her hands that usually saved lives now held a rifle. Young-Soo looked at his scanner screen. It showed heat from living things moving in the dark. At least 100 in this area, he said. Maybe more. They are being careful now. We hurt them badly in their first attacks. This was true. The aliens had expected easy victory, but the colonists had surprised them. Farmers who knew every rock and tree on their world made good guerrilla fighters. Engineers who built mining machines could also build very good bombs. Even the children helped by carrying messages through secret tunnels. The aliens had better weapons and more soldiers, but they did not understand how stubborn humans could be. They did not know that humans would fight like wild animals to protect their families. They did not realize that hurting innocent people was the best way to make all humans very angry. Back in the command room, Soo-Jin worked hard to move power from broken machines to working ones. I can keep the last 2 shields running for maybe 12 more hours, she said. After that, we will only have the underground bunkers and tunnel defenses. Hyunwoo looked around at his people. They were exhausted. They were running out of bullets and food. They were cut off from any hope of rescue. Any smart military leader would tell them to surrender. But when he looked in their eyes, he saw only determination. They would not give up. They would not let the aliens win easily. Listen to me, he said to everyone in the bunker. His voice went through the radio system to every tunnel, every guard post, every hiding place where his people waited. I know you are scared. I know you are tired. I know it looks hopeless, but we are still here. We are still fighting. And as long as we are alive, this is still our world. Outside, the aliens prepared for another attack. Admiral Thexavern looked at his war screens from his big ship above the planet. He was getting frustrated. This was supposed to be a simple show of power. Instead, it had become a long, bloody fight that was costing him ships and soldiers. The humans fought like trapped animals. They used their knowledge of the land to hurt his forces. They had turned their farming tools into weapons and their mining tunnels into fortresses. Worse, they showed no signs of breaking. If anything, they seemed to fight harder when things got worse. What the alien admiral did not understand was that he had made a terrible mistake. He had attacked not just a human colony, but human families, human children, And somewhere in the dark vastness of space, other humans had heard the desperate calls for help from New Busan. Help was coming. It was still days away, moving through space faster than any human ships had ever traveled, but it was coming with an anger that would shake the entire galaxy. As the night continued and the bombing went on, the people of New Busan held their positions. They did not know that rescue ships were racing toward them. They only knew that they would not surrender. They would make their stand here in the tunnels and bunkers of their home world. They would show the universe what humans were really made of. The alien ships kept shooting. The colonists kept fighting back. And in the deep tunnels below, children slept safely because brave men and women stood guard above them. The siege of New Busan continued, but the human spirit remained unbroken.